10 games into Manchester United's Premier League campaign, I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't know how to feel about the way that the Premier League season has been for Manchester United so far. Now, with saying that, of course, we're going to talk about the context surrounding those 10 games because I think that is definitely important. But Manchester United have played 10 games, won 5, and then lost 3, if I'm not wrong, and drawn 2 with a goal difference of +1. I mean, firstly, round of applause because we're in a positive goal difference. that's sad. That's sad. It's only a +1, but I think there's a lot of things to take away from all the games, both negative and positive. And I think the most important thing for Manchester United, and I say this all the time, is to take every game as it comes. So we're going to talk about that. Let me know your thoughts down below of what you think so far, 10 games into Manchester United's Premier League campaign. And shockingly, it's 1 year since Ruben Amorim was announced that Manchester United was going to be the new head coach. Now, he obviously took charge after that international break, but we're going to talk about that 1 year of Ruben Amorim as well. So let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Be sure to hit the like button and of course be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. Now let's start with, I think context is very, very important, and I think as football fans it's quite common for us to just skip past context. But Manchester United currently sit, as of time of recording, I mean it could change over the next couple of games, especially with the fixtures that Manchester United have on their horizon, including quite a few games away from home. But Manchester United currently sit in 8th, having gone on a 3-game win streak and then drawing to Nottingham Forest. And I think those signs for Manchester United in terms of their seasons, the season so far, I think the most telling sign, or the most questionable sign, is, has there been an improvement? And when I say improvement, I mean, has there been an improvement in creating chances? Has there been an improvement in Manchester United's defence? Has there been an improvement in build-up? And in the questionable parts of the game that we had last season, has there been an improvement? Firstly, we spent 200 million on a new front line, and I can definitely say that this front line this season is better than what Manchester United had last season, and I think it's without a shadow of a doubt. But I also think each player has taken their time to grow into their new founded role at Manchester United, and I'm okay with that, because personally I would never expect them to come into Manchester United and immediately impact scoring 10 goals in the first 10 games. I never expected that. And I'm talking about Sesko, I'm talking about Mbuma, I'm talking about Cunha. I'm going to start with Matheus Cunha, because that's the player that I think has dealt with the brunt of quite a lot of criticism over the first 10 games for Manchester United. And it's mainly because he didn't get his first goal in the Premier League until last week. Now, with saying that, I think the only thing I have to say about Matheus Cunha, and I like him as a player, I just think he needs to unlearn behaviour that he was so used to having at Wolves. When he was at Wolves, he was their best player, and equally so, he probably felt a big responsibility to try and create for them, to be that saviour. Listen, in football and as fans, everyone loves a saviour and everyone loves a scapegoat. And you can try be the saviour, but then when it comes to bad moments and bad opportunities and bad decisions, you will immediately become that scapegoat if Man United start losing. I think there needs to be an equal distribution in Manchester United's front line and even in their attack when it comes to the responsibility. And that's all Matheus Cunha really has to unlearn. Sometimes he might, pick up that ball from deep and drive with the ball because he's so good on the ball and driving it forward and getting it forward for Manchester United. But sometimes he might take an extra few touches too much. Sometimes he might go for goal instead of going for the pass. Sometimes he might not make the right decision. And at this time, it's all about unlearning that. The same way with Bryan Mbeumo. I think Man United were learning how to play with Bryan Mbeumo, and the same way Man United's midfield and their defensive line are learning to play with Matheus Cunha. With Bryan Mbeumo, a couple of games it took for Manchester United to be on the same page as him. Bruno, Ahmad. It took some time for them to all be on the same page as him, and for the impact that he had at Brentford. He did well, coming off of that right-hand side. He did well running in behind. He was able to score 20 goals like that last season, and it took some time. But I really think Man United have found that way of playing with Bryan Mbeumo. And with Sesko as well, we just have to be patient. I think the moral of the front line for me right now is patience. They will come into good. I think it's only a matter of time. It's very, like, what are the odds United spend another big fee on a front line and they don't work? At some point, luck has to be in your favour, right? But equally with saying that, I think there has been some definite positive signs to take from each individual player that I named. I think we need to play more to Sesko's strengths. And what I say by that is I don't think Sesko is a Osherman type of striker. I don't think he's a in the box, pure nine, just disruptive in the box type striker. I don't think he's that. I think he can flourish also by dropping deep, by linking the play well. I think he's got a great touch for a striker, especially a striker of his stature and his height. And I also think he's a very silky player on the ball. He doesn't take too many touches. And if anyone's going to benefit from that, it's going to be people like Mbeumo. It's going to be like Cunha. But I also think he can strike the ball very well. I think that front three needs to be more equal, rather especially in attack. And when I say equal, I mean they have an equal role to play each in getting the ball forward, but also creating those chances in front of goal. There shouldn't be more emphasis on somebody like Mbeumo or someone like Cunha to be getting the goals. I think everyone has to share the workload. And it's like that saying, you defend with 11 and then you attack with 11. Sometimes I felt like, especially with Sesko in the early stage and even against Forest, I felt a bit of isolation for him sometimes because you're isolating him from the game. Get him involved, get him dropping deep. And maybe that is a question for Ruben Amorim. When Man United are playing, out of possession shape, sometimes it's a 4-5-1, sometimes it's a 4-4-2. Does that neglect Sesko? Does that isolate him when Manchester United then pick up, the second ball and be able to be on the front foot? Does that leave your striker out of it, just, occupied between the two centre-backs or trying to occupy the two centre-backs whilst, everyone else is involved in the build-up and the attack? I just think each player for me has shown what they can do. There's definitely in those 10 games for Manchester United, there has been those 10 games where I've seen what Cunha has to offer. I've seen what Mbeumo has to offer. I've seen what Sesko has to offer. I've seen what they have to offer. And more is now about merging the three of them together and being able to create a fluid front line, number one, number two, that complement each other. I think that's the most important thing for me, and that's why I mentioned the term isolation. There is no player or striker in this attack in isolation that I think we should emphasize more on. This person needs to have the ball more. I think they all can add to Manchester United coming back defensively, and they can all add to Man United going forward. So I think that's the most important part. And just off of that, I think Ahmad has learned how to play with Bryan Mbeumo. I think in the first couple of games of the season, it was quite difficult to watch, but I definitely think that he's learned better on how to play with Mbeumo and how to complement him well, and vice versa for Mbeumo on how to complement Ahmad, given the fact that they are quite similar in terms of the kind of attackers that they are. Now, I think a big difference maker for Manchester United this season, especially in the latter part of those 10 games, is Lemans. I think I wouldn't be doing him it would be an injustice if I didn't mention him, because he came in with the heap of the world, I think, on his shoulders. Manchester United having, a poor quality of level of goalkeepers. So, the bare minimum people would be happy with. But I think he's given that and more. And I think as his confidence grows, as he continues to play, as he gets embedded into the team, I think it was reported that he was hired on a data level. The data metrics with Manchester United's recruitment team kind of valued him as a goalkeeper that was worth going after. And I think they definitely made that right decision there, because I think Man United have a potential quality goalkeeper on their hands. The more that he, embeds himself into the team and learns with the Premier League, and it's only going to come with experience. I think that's the most important part. But what I've seen so far from him has been promising. And being honest, for what Man United had last time, the bar is on the floor. Honestly, the first time that I watched Lemans for Manchester United, when he came out and claimed a cross and didn't punch a man in his head, I was applauding. I was like, wow, we've been deprived of this. But it's all jokes aside, it's a bit traumatic to say that, right, guys? But I think, as time goes on, he will definitely come to be more handy for Manchester United, especially when Ruben Amorim, I think, approaches the game by going for those second balls, similar to what we did against Liverpool at Anfield. I think his Lemans was actually quite integral to get those 3 points. So I'm really pleased with him. I'm pleasantly pleased with him, because I didn't know what to expect coming in. I knew statistically he was one of the, the most promising goalkeepers in Europe, but I would be lying if I said that I watched him game in, game out. But I was a bit skeptical, but I was hopeful, and I don't think he's disappointed as of yet. But I also think there's definitely room for him to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay, because he's a young keeper that's going to have to experience those tough moments, those tough situations to become a better goalkeeper. I'm not saying this journey is going to be smooth completely for him, but in terms of Ruben Amorim's first year at Manchester United, and then if you correlate that with, the first 10 games of the season this year, how do fans feel about that? Because I've had conflicting conversations with friends who are Man United fans, friends who are non-Manchester United fans, and also followers, etc., online as well. And I think it's been a tale of two different stuff. Firstly, I think the 1 year, it's been tough. We have to be honest. It's been a difficult 12 months, right? With saying that, I think the first 10 games this season, and I'm focusing on the Premier League because I said this last season, the Premier League or whatever league you're in is your bread and butter, right? The humiliating result against Grimsby is still going to be there, but that I think is in isolation because it's outside of the Premier League. But I'm not saying forget about it, guys. I'm just saying it's in isolation. But if we look at the bread and butter, Manchester United put up a better performance against Arsenal in the opening game of the Premier League campaign. We've scummed our way to some 3 points here and there, but also deservedly won 3 games in a row. And I don't think anyone can I don't think anyone can say that's not the case. That Man United didn't deserve to win against Anfield, and they didn't deserve to win against Brighton. The most important thing for me, and I say this all the time, even on my streams, I say, listen, every game as it comes. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm taking every game as it comes. I'm looking at Premier League games. Number 1, if we can get a run of fixtures. Number 2, if we can start winning games away from home. And I think that is our boogeyman at the moment. And number 3, talking about boogeymen, but getting those results against the boogeymen teams, the Bournemouths, the Nottingham Forests, the Newcastles. I'm going to mention Wolves despite the fact they're bottom of the table this season. But, in the past, they haven't been the teams that we've really come up and really flexed our weight and been able to walk away with 3 points quite confidently. We did it against Brighton this season, but we struggled against Brentford and we struggled against Fulham. So those are the things that I look at in isolation going into the rest of the season. Can Manchester United create a harmonised squad? I think right now the starting 11 is a little bit imbalanced, and especially watching that Nottingham Forest game, I think that imbalance, it kind of showed. Manchester United tilt was more towards the right side than the left, and that left side for me is a diminishing factor for Manchester United sometimes. Can Ruben Amorim find an answer for that? Because I think the run of games that Manchester United have coming up over the next couple of games, it's a very, very difficult run of games. I will say that for sure. It's a tough run of games. But there are winnable games in there. And Spurs is the first game that you're looking at on the horizon. And I think with the Nottingham Forest result, had Manchester United not won 3 games in a row, I personally was disappointed with the result, but I will take it. I will take it. Because Manchester United just won 3 in a row. 4 would have been amazing. But we need to see that on a consistent level. And that is what is going to be demanded over the course of the rest of the next 28 or so games. And it's going to be tough, let's be honest. The next run of games, especially after international break in November, that period up until the new year, Man United are playing a heap of games. I think we're playing about 8 or 9 games in the Premier League, or give or take. And those are going to be the games that I think start to be the deciding factors, not just for Manchester United, but for also the other teams. That's going to be the deciding factors to this top 4, top 5, top 6 race. I think that's the times that we have to look at. And Manchester United, for me, need to have a better December than they had last year. It can't. What happened last year and even the year before that, I can't remember the last time we had a good December, guys. I can't remember it. But listen, let me know your thoughts down below. What have you made 10 games into the season? Is there any things in isolation that you can identify that's gone wrong for Manchester United, that's not working for Manchester United? Do you think Manchester United improved? Has Manchester United improved from last season in the last 10 games or the first 10 games of this season? That is a great question, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. So let me know down below in the comment section. Be sure to hit the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here.